House Judiciary Committee will come to order. Next, we have Rick Thompson, neutral on the bill, who would like to speak. Again, please contain it to 2 minutes. Michigan Cannabis Business Development Group.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to address the House Judiciary. I've spoken to this committee and others on the progress of the MMFLA bills back when they were called the Local Option Bill in 2011 and ever since. Representative Sowerby, you mentioned how it particularly might be more advantageous for a larger corporation to satisfy the individual needs. Try to get Target to stock a specialty item. You can't, right? They can only offer you what Target has on their catalog. Now, if you go to a small retailer and ask them to stock a specialty item, you'll get that, because smaller retailers are more responsive to individual persons' needs. Same thing applies for medical marijuana patients. We see that in the state already. Stacking of Class C licenses is a tool of advantage wielded by big business. I oppose the concept. Spreading the financial advantage offered by the MMFLA into as many hands as possible is the best way to ensure a continuous and uninterrupted supply of medicinal cannabis to the patient community who the MMFLA will service. From a technical nature, confining thousands of plants into a single growing location creates an opportunity for catastrophic failure. Okay? Should an infestation affect the crop, an entire garden of plant could be unusable. It may be required to be destroyed. You could lose 6,000 to 9,000 plants. A power failure, unexpected cold snaps, which happen in Michigan all the time, equipment malfunctions. Any of those things could happen and kill an entire large single location garden. More importantly, a failure at a business level where lawsuits or legal actions could interrupt the ability of a single entity to be able to operate. That could interrupt the flow of medicine to our patient population and change the supply chain. If a single action were to take 6,000 or 9,000 plants out of the Michigan medical marijuana supply chain, that's a significant negative consequence, which will affect the pricing and the access of medical marijuana statewide. I support the bill, but I remain neutral. Since we're already opening up Section 501, Representative Runestad, why don't we change the definitions of Class A, B, and C licenses? Let's become even more accessible to the people. Drop Class A licenses from 500 to 100 plants, Class B from 1,000 to 500, and Class C from 1,500 to 1,000. When we reduce the number of minimum plants required for each of these license categories, we increase the number of small businesses that will be able to qualify. And of course, the corresponding capitalization requirements would be reduced as well. Since we're opening up 501, we have an opportunity to really make this a more advantageous MMFLA program for the average caregiver and the average patient.
Thank you. Any questions? Representative Grimal.
Yeah, thank you for your testimony. I remain undecided on this bill. So I understand your point. I think you did a good job of articulating that there are downsides to consolidation and to creating economies of scale on one site. In particular, there's more risk perhaps to the business operating that site if they face an infestation or other catastrophic or somewhat catastrophic event. Why not, though, allow each individual business to make those decisions based on what they think makes the most sense for their business, weighing the benefits and the costs, the upsides and the risks? Why not allow, as we typically do in a free market, to allow businesses to decide whether they want to consolidate operations on one site or spread them over multiple sites?
If that was a good idea, the legislature would have done it when you passed the MMFLA. That's a decision, license stacking, that took place in the absence of legislative control. It was a decision made on an administrative level without an open meetings discussion, without dialogue with the citizens involved in this, without dialogue with the patient community. And therefore, it's derived from an improper process as far as I'm concerned. Business itself has plenty of opportunities for advantage throughout the state. The MMFLA offers great opportunity for wealth. And at a 1,500 plant level, every business can be successful. There's no need for us to empower a single corporation to involve 3,000, 4,500, 6,000, 75, 9,000, over 10,000 plants entitled to one particular entity. If you put 6,000 plants in one facility, that means you've denied 12 opportunities for a 500 plant grow. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Michigan's economic stability is based on our small business community. It's based on the number of entrepreneurs being successful in our state. If you limit the number of entrepreneurs that can participate in the MMFLA program, we've defeated that economic advantage. And we've done what some other businesses have been accused of, creating that unique advantage that stifles competition.
Thank you.
If I may, I think I understand the point that you're making, but in general, we as state government don't dictate the size of operations or require that there be different size level of operations. We don't typically do that in other industries. We typically allow the market mechanisms of a given industry to operate. Why should this be any different?
Well, you've already articulated in the language of Section 501 that this is different. You've already articulated Class A, Class B, Class C licenses. So you've already set limits for those particular licenses. Remember, there's no such thing as stacking of Class A or Class B licenses, because why stack two 500 licenses together? You just get 1,000 plant license. But the opportunity to determine whether stacking was a legitimate option was realized by the legislature. This was a very robust conversation in 2015 and 2016. That concept was raised and eliminated from language, if I'm not mistaken. So the opportunity to do that was in the legislature's hands, and they elected not to. Now we have unelected people that are just sliding that in on their own, as Representative Runestad said, sort of by surprise in September. It's an improper process.
Well, that seems a little ambiguous, right? Certainly, if it were clear what the legislation intended and that we had an unelected office overriding the clear, unambiguous intent of the legislation, it would be a simple enough process for interested parties to take that unelected entity to court and say it's acting in violation of the legislation. The fact that we're here discussing clarifying language to the legislation suggests that the legislature wasn't clear in its initial intent.
I disagree with that. I think what this is a legitimate action by the legislature to rein in a state of Michigan department that's gone a little bit out of control. They've exceeded their authorization and exceeded their authority by passing a rule without proper process and dialogue under the guise of the Open Meetings Act, and through that process created a rule. Now, the only way that that rule can get overturned is through what we're doing right now. So as far as I'm concerned, this isn't correcting a deficiency of the legislature. This is the legislature correcting a deficiency of the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs.
Okay, we do have to move on. Thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you very much.